welcome to Slayerfest 98. I'm your host, Ian Carlos Crawford, and joining me today is my lovely co-host, writer,
Philip Ellis. Hello.
Hi, Philip.
Hello, it's great to be here as always, and we've got two fantastic guests to talk about Buffy with us today. First of all, we have an actor who you can see very soon on Dr. Death on Peacock.
Dominic Burgess.
Hi, Dominic.
Hello.
And we also have a political reporter and White House correspondent,
Eugene Daniels. Hey, everybody.
Woo.
Hello. Lovely to have you both here.
I feel like both Dominic and Eugene, both of you, I've been like, we've been talking about having you both on. Like, I've been talking to each of you, and it's nice to finally get you both on because I was excited. And Eugene, you made my day today with the, like, when you quote tweeted it saying it was one of your most exciting podcast appearances.
No, the most. I'm not joking. And probably the most exciting thing I've ever been on. It's just, I didn't want to hurt people's feelings on Twitter, but like, I've never, as a Buffy nerd, I've never been more excited to join something, and I'm very nervous actually about messing it.
I'm like, what? You like?
I know it doesn't make any sense, but this feels like more pressure because I do. You know, it's a show that you actually like really. I'm obsessed with.
Did you hear your own intro? You were a White House correspondent.
I know. It doesn't make any sense, but here we are.
White House correspondent and Umber himself with us. Like we're the ones who should be nervous.
I just have to mention that Dominic also was in The Magicians, which is, as everyone knows, like one of my second favorite show next to Buffy.
Yeah.
So I feel like we got really stacked guests here. I'm really excited. Eugene, would you like to go first with your Buffy origin?
Sure. I am 32, so I watched Buffy from the very first time that it came out, like episode 1, season 1. I was watching, we lived in Miami, Florida at the time. And I just remember being obsessed with vampires. I've always loved vampires. They're very sexy. They're very, they're always kind of queer feeling. Like they always feel like, you know, they'll hang out and date and kiss whomever they want.
Yeah.
And it just was a show that, like, you know, it really spoke to adolescence, and like all the monsters at the very beginning kind of spoke to the ways in which you were feeling when I was a kid that was bullied. So all of those aspects of it, of feeling like you didn't have any friends and all that, and then finally like a weird little group of friends, a Scooby gang, like that all felt very like, and it really hit me in the feels from day one. And I bought all the comics that just came out too. So like my obsession has continued into my adulthood. I still have the DVDs. I just rebought all of them on iTunes. It's a macro obsession, as we call it in my house.
Well, I don't know if you've seen any of the podcast covers I do, but I also collect a lot of Buffy stuff, so I feel you. Dominic, would you like to give us your Buffy origin?
Yeah. I grew up in the UK, and I feel like I didn't catch on to Buffy until maybe early in the second season, because I would race home and I would watch Next Generation and X-Files and stuff when I got home from school or in the evening. And I feel like on BBC Two or on Sky One, Next Generation wasn't on one day, and they put Buffy on instead. And I was like, what's this? And then I was hooked. And I feel like my first exposure was around Innocence kind of time. And it was like, oh, this feels so mature and adult. And I feel like, I like this. And then I was hooked. And then I retroactively went back and I hunted everything down. And then, oh man, I was a terrible teenager because I would wreck things for myself and I would troll the internet for spoilers, and just because I was hungry to know what happened. And I'm the antithesis of that now. Now I don't want anything spoiled ever. But as a teenager, I would be like, oh my gosh, I have to find out what happened at the end of season 2. What's going to happen? And I just loved the storytelling. And it's one of those shows, you know, along with Star Trek and the X-Files and Twin Peaks, that was so formative to me growing up, that made me want to become an actor and move to Los Angeles to pursue acting, because I just loved that form of storytelling compared to everything else that was going on in England.
That, you know, it's funny. I always say that I think Buffy and X-Men, but like are the two reasons why I wanted to write, because those were like stories. It was like, oh, you could tell stories like this that like take themselves seriously, but like are fantastical and whatever. So yeah, it's funny that season 2 was when you got in, because so my mom, who is 74, turning 75 this month, was like really into Buffy when I was a teen. And I remember I was that nerd that I'd like push up my glasses and make fun of her. But the first episode I like saw was Buffy killing Angel in Becoming Part 2, and my mom crying and me being like, "Are you crying watching Buffy?" And then suddenly I was like, "Ooh, this seems good." Like,
my parents were so obsessed. They got it from me that we started watching it together. There was a period in the second season where they wouldn't let me watch it anymore because it was too violent. And then I made them watch kind of the end of season 2, and they realized, the good people win. And so I continued to watch it with them growing up when it was on UPN, or WB at the very beginning, and then hopped over to UPN and we watched it as a family. So it became like a bonding thing on Tuesdays.
My mother would get like very Puerto Rican when she would watch Buffy. So there hit a point when I was like, okay, we can't watch this together because you are talking way too much.
Oh no.
Well, my mom loves to talk while watching a show too, so I feel your pain there.
Yeah. And like I would watch in a different room, but then like commercial breaks, I would like go over to where she was and we'd like talk about what just happened. And like I can remember going after like Tara was shot, going over to see her, and she was crying and I was crying, but then like racing out of the room because I didn't want her to talk through the rest of the episode. But okay, so we're here to talk about season 7's Never Leave Me. I will say, like, I know season 7, well, actually, Eugene and Dominic, I'm going to ask you both, what are your thoughts on season 7? Because I know it can be a little polarizing.
I'm a season 7 apologist. So I know there's a lot of people who didn't love season 7. My only issue with season 7, it was the end of Buffy. That was my only issue. I really enjoyed season 7 for a couple of reasons. One, it was like it resembles the rest of TV changing. Like at the very beginning of the show, all of the episodes, they have like the Monster of the Week kind of formula. And this one wasn't like that. And also, it also felt like it was a perfect explanation of growing up. Like when you're in high school, like one thing could ruin your whole week. And it's just one thing you're dealing with and it never goes away. But then as an adult, it's kind of like one big thing that you're just always depressed about, right? Like, and so it felt like it was a really good metaphor for life, like as they grew up. And, they had, some great characters that kind of threw everything at the wall for a lot of it. And I think that Buffy really came into her own in it. And I'm one of those people, even to this day, I will go on whatever journey the creator or the writer, the director. I mean, I'm still watching Grey's Anatomy 8 million years in. So it's like I'm dedicated. I'm whatever your vision is, I'm in. And I think like that for me, Buffy just was such a huge part of my childhood. I think it ended when I was maybe going to high school. So like right when to go to high school in 2003. And so season 7 is actually one of my favorites. I have the book, The Chosen novelization.
I have that too.
Season 7. I love it. Oh, such a good photo of Sarah on the cover. So I think like all of it's one of my favorite seasons. So people who don't like it, I'm sorry, but get over it.
Wait, Eugene. So that book, when they like the way they wrote Anya's like final scene.
Oh.
Is like so heartbreaking because it's her talking about like remembering her marriage and everything, and then she gets and I think about that a lot with like that scene's already heartbreaking because like who doesn't love Anya, but then I always think of it with that, like the interior monologue they wrote for her for that scene in that giant ass book. So yeah,
I tried to I lost it for a while, and then like in moving, and then I finally was able to find it online somewhere and spent like $40 on it. Like, just insane looking back, but I just love it so much. I love that it exists.
I love that. Dominic, how do you feel about season 7?
I love season 7. I'm
all right.
Again, I'm all for the ride. I love serialized storytelling. And I think season 7 is where it really was. I really noticed it just watching this episode as a refresh, because normally when I do a Buffy watch, I'll go from beginning to the end, or I'll tear through a whole season. And so I did notice just watching this episode on its own, which I didn't because I watched the next 2 afterwards because I was like, then I was in it. But I realized how this episode in particular didn't really stand on its own per se, that it was part of a larger whole. But yeah, I think Eugene put it so nicely that it was a perfect analogy for adulthood, that now all these things are building. And yeah, the only thing I think I didn't enjoy so much about the season was the new Sunnydale High.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it felt, I don't know, I feel, and this might just be me being crazy, I feel like I would have maybe even rather than say, oh, we rebuilt the old high school to the old specifications, and I don't, there's just something about the look of the high school that I was just like, oh, I don't like the look.
It's very
of
glossy.
Yeah, there was. I don't know. Maybe it almost felt like a soft reboot. Like they were bringing in this new element way too late in the game.
That's fair.
But no, I love it, and I'm so glad that Faith came in at the end, because she's my favorite or one of my favorites. And yeah, and
I feel
the
like most queer
soundtrack.
folks who love Buffy love Faith, right?
Oh my god!
Oh yeah,
Yes.
and I play quite frequently the music from the last episode, as everything is collapsing.
It's so good.
Oh my gosh, it's on one of my soundtrack like playlists on my phone, and it pumps me up. If I'm gonna I'm gonna go rowing, I'll play that and I'll pump myself up to that.
You'll tell someone to get out of your face.
Yeah, exactly.
But okay, so we're here to talk about Never Leave Me, which I do. This is an episode that I very much, season 7, I think, is the season I remember most watching live, because I feel like at that point I had it down to a science of making sure I was home to tape the episode, taping it, but also still watching it, and then would rewatch it immediately after on the VHS tape that I taped it on. And I remember, the episode before this, Sleeper, is kind of, we focus a little too much on Spike, I will say, is an issue I have, because while I love Spike, I don't love the trigger and figuring, I'm like, come on, keep moving. But it feels like this is like where the plot, like Conversations with Dead People feels like the kickoff to the story for the season. And this feels like, oh, shit's happening here. Like we're getting, Anya and Xander with Andrew and, Buffy with Spike. And I really like this episode, and rewatching it, there was stuff I had forgotten about that I love.
There's a lot of stuff that I liked in this episode, but it was a strange experience when I rewatched it, just to refresh my memory for today. It was a really strange experience watching it, because this is the point in season 7 when I actually don't remember what happens in what episode, because it's so heavily serialized as a story that this episode doesn't really have a clear beginning, middle, and end. It doesn't exist as an episode of television. It's just the next sort of chapter in the ongoing story. I feel like Conversations with Dead People is this amazing sort of experimental structure within the world of Buffy that then, as you say, kicks off the main plot, but exists very much as its own thing. And then everything after that is basically just one long story, and you have some self-contained things within that, like Storyteller, for instance. But basically, we are now just on the rest of the season is going to be one long slog of story to get to the finale. And that's no bad thing if, like Dom, if you're saying, like, if you're binging it, it's great to just get swept up in that story and be along for the ride and bring in all the potential slayers and have just one crisis and conflict after another. I really, really do like that, because I'm the same. I had to resist the urge to kind of then go on a season 7 binge after I watched this. It's just, as an actual hour of TV, it's structurally very strange, because it's just, here's some stuff that's happening. We're still reacting from last week. We're setting things up for next week. And there's no actual real story being told here. It's just sort of characters reacting to stuff, and then they hit a cliffhanger and it's over.
Well, so speaking of that, we do open on them kind of fixing the living room, because it's still a mess from Conversations with Dead People. But I love the thing they do this season a lot, which actually they had to do a lot on The Magicians as well, Dominic, where they have to a lot of shit has happened, so we have to have the characters kind of telling you, reminding you a little bit of what was going on. And I think, I don't know, like a lesser show might not have done it well, but I do think Buffy and the Magicians both do it really well. We're like, we get Anya and she's like, shouldn't we stab him through the chest? Isn't that what we do? Like being all shitty about it,
To
which
our
I
friends.
love, right? Like, and I appreciate when it's the Scoobies jokingly recapping, but they're like being shitty about it. I don't know. That's pleasing to me, I think, as a like way to recap without having to like have them sit down and be like, here's what happened.
I agree. Like when Dawn is talking to Willow and she's like, didn't he kill all those girls and bury them in the basement? Maybe they're all over the place. And it kind of reminds you of how bad Spike is at this point. I also think this episode's like this is how TV shows are now, like just like one long movie, right? And so I think, it was well before its time in that. And that's actually how I prefer to watch TV. I don't want to be able to like jump in and watch one episode and like know everything that happened. The same thing with music. Like I like albums that feel like one thing, like one story all the way through. I'm also a Beyonce fan, so that tells you a little bit it tells you a lot about like how I like to listen to, like engage with my media. And I think this episode is so good at that. And then there's always Andrew comes back. Actually, it's like the original gay throuple of television, with Warren and Andrew and Jonathan kind of being together, just like engaging and like Andrew trying to like touch Warren and all this stuff. Like all of that stuff really speaks to me. That they were a fun group for me.
So one thing I did actually really like at the start of this episode was when Anya says, do we need to be worried that William the Bloody is back? And then it cuts to somebody that we think is hilarious shot in the black duster, which was very expensive, he says later on.
And I will say, I know some people feel also, Andrew can be polarizing too, and I get it, because like maybe Jonathan deserved Andrew's story because Jonathan was like the only one that was kind of like, he felt regret about what they were doing early on rather than Andrew, who did not. But I think Andrew is very enjoyable to watch on screen. Like I understand,
I love him.
Right?
It's also like a redemption story,
yes,
which Buffy like the show loves to do a redemption story.
Yes,
and he's the queerest one, so that's why I was so excited that he like came back, because like he clearly came out at a different time in seasons 8 and 9. If the TV show continued, so he always really spoke to me, and I love him. And the actor's also really fun on Instagram now.
Yes,
yeah. And I saw on Instagram the three of them got together recently, and then Sarah Michelle Gellar photoshopped herself in through like, where was my invite? And I love Tom Lenk as an actor and a performer. And if you he does Luke's for Less on his Instagram page, where he'll sort of replicate red carpet looks with whatever he's got in his house. So it's like wallpaper and wrapping paper and string, and he's so creative.
And I gotta say, I am like friendly with him, and one time we went out for drinks and he like casually mentioned Sarah, and I was like, did you just casually mention Sarah Michelle Gellar to me hanging out with her? He was like, yes, that's what I was talking about. I was like, you can't just breeze by that with me.
Something I did notice in this episode, and I think it's because more recently I've been doing a lot more writing and directing and sort of producing films and stories, is now I'm watching a lot of these shows, how small it was in terms of the locations they used. They were pretty much inside the house.
Oh yeah.
The entire time. There were a couple of scenes in the school, one in the butcher shop, but for the most part, it was a real bottle episode in terms of budget. I was like, oh my gosh, this is a budget person's dream. They're just inside the location for 7 days. They'll save that budget for the CGI at the end of the season. This is great.
It's funny because when Buffy does go to other sets, it's like almost jarring when they're not just like in the house or in the school or walking down that one street in Sunnydale where they always walk down.
Especially this season, this episode really did remind me of how much of season 7 is just various people tied to chairs in different rooms of Buffy's house.
Yes. That is accurate.
Which, what a fantasy.
Right?
Honestly.
So post credit, we get Andrew talking to the first as Warren, as Jonathan. And I like that Jonathan says as the first that him being anemic made it so there wasn't enough blood to open the seal, which is so ridiculous, and I love it. Then we get the credits, and we cut to Robin Wood, who we hadn't seen for a few episodes in the season. I'm reminded of how fucking gorgeous that man is.
Oh my God.
He is fine as hell.
It's insane. Like, one of the most beautiful people on the
he
planet.
looks the same now. It's crazy.
Yeah, black don't crack is what we like to say. And that he is like a perfect example of that. He was one of my favorite, and has continued to be throughout the season, despite, the issues he was until later with Buffy. One of my favorite characters, one, because he was like the first black person that like really stuck around for a long time other than Kendra. Right. And also because he was just like so mysterious, and it was like fun to have like the hot black principal who was very mysterious and we didn't know what was going on. Like, that was really fun.
Did you think he was evil? Because I remember thinking that I thought he was either like working with the first, or was like the same thing that happened with Spike was happening with him, or like what my theories were on him.
Like, I thought he might have been a watcher, maybe, like sent by Quentin Travers to like be around Buffy. And the more in this episode, when we saw the watchers again, I was like, oh, I'm right. But obviously I was wrong.
But so we get, he's reprimanding these kids, and I feel like he's even more attractive when he's being quietly aggressive. But I do love that Dawn knocks on the door to kind of like give like a excuse as to why Buffy's not there. And she's like, she was vomiting, then she vomited some more, and then she said it was coming out of both ends. His delivery of "thank you, that was very helpful" is like really good. And then, like you said, Eugene, we cut to the Watchers Council. Dominic, I have a TV question for you for this.
Oh boy, I'm excited.
It feels wild to me that all of the Watchers that we had seen previously are back for like scenes where they have maybe one line. I think the one older dude doesn't even have a line. That's like not that common, right? That you can get all those actors back for like 2-second roles.
Gosh, that's a good question. I mean, they wouldn't have known about it in advance. Probably they might have got a phone call maybe 3 weeks in advance to say, hey, is such and such available for one scene, one day in 3 weeks' time? And just by happenstance, they might have been able to figure it out. But also it's an actor's dream to, well, I like it, when a show calls you back unexpectedly. You know, I died at the end of season 2 in The Magicians, and I was like, oh man, that's sad. And then when I got the phone call to be like, hey, Magicians want you back for season 4, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So yeah, I guess, and you know, why not go back? Especially if you're a fan of a show, then yeah, get that paycheck.
Because I didn't realize that, because one of those Watchers isn't, like, almost all of them are the ones we saw in Checkpoint in season 5. Yeah. But then one of them is the other Watcher that we saw. God, Philip, do you know what I'm talking about? Like I think he's from the season 4 episode.
Oh, who are you? He's one of like the shadier, like Wet Works people. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's just, he
was like really like scolding Faith and telling her that she was a disgrace.
Yes,
that guy, wasn't it? Yeah.
Buffy always did that pretty well, which I always liked, of like bringing back I mean, like, you know, like even Jonathan, who was a side character, was, you know, brought back, and like Harmony comes to mind, right? Like the show always did that pretty well, of being like, ooh, let's bring this actor back, you know, and keeping it like in continuity or whatever. I always liked that.
Yeah. And what they, when they bring someone back, even if they just have one line, say in this episode, and they had more stuff before, I think, or certainly how rules used to be, they're contractually obligated to keep them at the same billing, so they couldn't reduce them to like a co-star or a smaller role. They'd still have to keep them on the same credit that they were on before. And I think likewise, if you know, you kill off a series regular and then you bring them back as a special guest star, I think they still have to match their original rate that they were on the show. So
I guess that makes sense then. If like, oh, you don't want to bring me back, I got paid this, and here I have, you know, 2 words I say, but I get paid the same. Sure.
Uh-huh, exactly.
I would go back for that paycheck.
Me too. I'd go on Buffy for free if they bring it back myself.
Oh my gosh, me too.
So the phone conversation that Buffy has with Quentin, I mean, this guy, let's be honest, deserved to get like exploded at the end because after season 5, where Buffy finally puts him in his place, and he realizes, okay, there is no like telling this girl what's what, like she is the boss. He's just right back on his bullshit, and he's like, "Oh, the girl suspects nothing. I'm the patriarchy, and this is what we're gonna do." And it's like, "Oh, fuck off!" No,
I had forgotten until my rewatch that they did know what was going on,
right?
But like, didn't fucking tell her.
How does it serve them to not tell the only active Slayer who isn't in prison what is going on?
She's the only person that could do anything about it, and if their job is to save the world, you would think they would tell her that the world is about to end. I mean, for me, the Watchers Council was always this like sick obsession because I hated them, but loved that they're around because I've always been obsessed with politics. And all that bureaucracy is so fascinating, and it shows you how much like people who are in charge, like these old white men being in charge of much more powerful women. It's like the perfect explanation for just like Earth and like how we operate. And then also like this, like it shows like how bad, if you don't communicate with the people actually doing the work, how bad it can end up, right? When they end up, having an issue at the end. I don't want to get all the way there, but like, if you don't tell the person that can save everyone, then everybody's screwed. Right. And so I think it's just the perfect explanation for politics, honestly.
They are a great analogy, and we said, I think I was on the episode when we talked about Helpless back in season 3, and it's basically like, they are just the patriarchy sort of as a macro,
and they suck.
It's also just like incredibly frustrating to watch.
Yeah, I've actually been watching the show Evil. I don't know if any of you have watched it.
No, not yet, but I hear it's good.
It is good. It's definitely like worth a watch. And my biggest issue is always like, this show has the same problem like Lost had, which is another show I love, where like these characters aren't like saying what's going on when the other ones aren't around. And if they just did, the problems would be solved so much easier. But like, that's TV, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Like,
more communication, guys, and everything will be solved. That's what all these shows are telling us.
So we get we see that Buffy has Spike tied to the chair in her bedroom. He's going through withdrawals. She's kind of like talking to Willow about it. And like saying that he had been feasting on people, blah, 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 blah. But then we cut to Andrew, and I think this scene is really funny.
Okay, so before we get into that, can I just say one thing I don't like about the scene with Willow and Buffy?
Yes.
When Willow's like, want me to kill Anya? And when Buffy like contemplates it, those two women are fucking rude.
I appreciate that Willow stays on mission of I will never like Anya.
Literally, yes, I do appreciate that.
Willow, you just killed a man. Chill out. You have no legs to stand on.
I love both those characters so much, but I do love how much Willow like cannot stand Anya because
God,
that feels real, right? But like she hates this person that actually like she shouldn't really hate, but like we all have someone we like can't stand. I feel like especially existing on Twitter where like you see someone tweet like, oh, this motherfucker, but really you have like no reason to like strongly dislike this person, but like you can't stand whatever they say. So like
I have a theory about this. I have a theory about why Willow will always hate Anya.
Okay.
Because Anya represents her guilty conscience, because Anya only exists within the world of the show because Willow cheated on her Oz. And that is all I'm going to say on that.
But so we get the first as Warren kind of try egging Andrew on, and the like weird reveal where it's like, cut her deep, cut her quick, and he's like, what if she squeals? And then we see it's a fucking pig. Very good.
Which has less blood than Jonathan would have had, just to put that out there.
Right, I was thinking that. I was like, even if he's anemic, he's still like a human being.
A human being with more blood than a tiny piglet, which is what we are looking at.
Well, just as a side note, I'm always here for Ghost references, the movie Ghost references.
I mean, again, just like it wasn't canon, but they are queering Andrew when Warren's frame of reference is Star Wars and his is Patrick Swayze.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I love his like what he yell, he's like, "That'll do, pig," and then lunges at the fucking pig and still misses. I think Tom Lang's delivery of a lot of these lines of like how silly he is, just like I think Andrew is a breath of fresh air in the season, because while I don't like hate the season, I do think we get too many potential Slayers, but we needed a character like Andrew to bring in to make like, he's not taking this apocalypse too seriously, because he doesn't he's kind of like a dum-dum, but like an enjoyable to watch dum-dum. And I think they definitely needed that character, because even someone like Anya has a better understanding of what's going on, right? So like, while she is the funny one, she's understandably more stressed out than she would normally be, and isn't as jokey as she would normally be. But I still like, this episode also shows us how well the two of them work together.
Oh, yes.
So
good.
Yeah. But so like, we get him, he goes to a butcher shop. I like that the butcher calls him Neo, making fun of his jacket. He gets his blood and he runs right into Willow. And what happens, Philip?
Oh my god! So I remember the first time I saw this episode screaming at that moment, because I think it was like a cut to break as well. Like, if you were Andrew and you just ran into Willow, you really would shit your pants, wouldn't you?
Right.
Oh my god! And it's so funny because he clearly thinks she's still evil, and it's only like several scenes later, he's like, wait, your hair isn't even black. But that whole brilliant scene where she basically just like drags him by his ear out of the shop and like throws him against the wall, and he's like, oh, she witch, no, like you have no power here. And then she's like, okay, like calm down. And it's just like, it's just the funniest.
His body slams him into the wall.
It's just,
Willow pretending to be evil is just always good television. Like Doppelganger in season 3, I think is the one where she's like pretending to be her vampire self. Like she's just like Allison Hannigan always does that really well. So I think that the like 1 minute of that this episode was so good.
And then the sweet little okay at the end, we're like nerdy.
Exactly.
I also do like that because she's trying to do, like you said, she's trying to act evil, and she's doing what Andrew was just doing, where he's like, oh, well, I'm being protected by forces. And then she's like, pushes him, and she is like, well, I'm a powerful she-witch, or, well, witch. Like, she's like still trying to do the like exaggeration thing. And I actually think those two actors work well, like opposite each other too. I think Tom Lank does a good job with works well opposite most of the women on the show, honestly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think so you're absolutely right that he did sort of bring like a nice sort of new injection of energy into the final season. I feel like because a character like Xander would previously have been the audience surrogate, where he's like the everyman who's making the pop culture nerdy references. Right. But even Xander is just like so world weary at this point that he doesn't serve that narrative function anymore. So it's great to bring someone new in, even just to like usher the show into its last season. It's just, and he is like in literally every single episode of the show moving forward now until it ends. It's a good choice. Yeah,
I looked up a trivia, and starting this episode, he's in every episode till the end, and then starting next episode, the actor who plays Kennedy is in every episode to the end, which is
so good,
wild.
But wow.
They really crowd the season, but I don't mind it as much as other. I know a lot of people hate it, but I don't
because like you look at shows now, there's always 8 million people in shows now, and it's like, okay, guys, let it go. But like everyone here serves a purpose, and they might pop up, 3 episodes later, like fine ass Robin Wood, but they will come back. And speaking of fine, Nicholas Brendan, when he's like when they walk in, like when Willow walks
Eugene.
in with Andrew, look, he's so hot. Putting that window together. He's so like in the t-shirt, and then he put on that orange jacket, which was really sad because I wanted him to be in that black t-shirt the whole episode. It's so good. Like I'm like, damn, okay, Xander.
Say this podcast episode is starring 4 gay men without saying it's starring 4 gay men.
Every man were like hot. That one's also hot, and him hot as well. Yes,
because you know what, the costume designer said that lots of times he, like, looking back when he looks on season 7, he thinks the women are wearing things that could be worn now, which I do agree with. Yeah. But like the men, because it was in style, are like clothes that are way too baggy that he would never dress men in.
Yes,
and it's weird because that one scene, he's suddenly wearing a well-fitting t-shirt,
right?
But then, like you said, he puts on that jacket and it's immediately back to like way too baggy.
Yeah, back to dumpy whatever outfits that we all, well, Yeah, I guess I wore a little bit of dumpy outfits
Yeah.
in the 2000s as well.
I probably did, yeah.
That shit is coming back on TikTok, and I hate it.
Not as far. See, this is why I'm not on TikTok, because of shit like that. I refuse to not wear tight pants ever again.
Oh my God, right?
Who needs
I'm like you.
in their legs?
Exactly. I would never engage in like the Janko coming back situation. Just not doing it, everybody.
Yeah, do we then get... Is this the scene where they're interrogating Andrew? Is that right?
Well, so Willow brings him back to the house. Xander looks great. This is when we cut to immediately they're tying him up. And I know. So I have issues with, I talked about this in the episode. I hate, I know that Xander is problematic, but I still don't think he would have left her at the altar. And I almost wish Xander and Anya had gotten to be the happy couple for the rest of the show, because they do work really well together. And this, she's doing bad cop, he's doing good cop. It works for me. I don't know. It's silly because, like you said, he's like, duh, that jacket's new. And she's like, oh, is it expensive? And just throws it on the ground and stomps on it.
It's a very, very fun scene. And even later on where she slaps Xander by accident and she's like, I'm sorry. And it's like, I bet you enjoyed that. I bet you enjoyed that, because I would.
But she's so good. This is when I think, if you weren't already in love with Anya, this is an episode where, holy shit, she's so good in it. Her bad cop, the slapping, all of it, and also getting to watch them go from enemies back to kind of friends, and then they go back to sex buddies, and then finally kind of falling back in love for the very, very end. All of that kind of starts in this episode for me. And so when I was rewatching for this to remind myself, I was like, oh, this is so good, but also so tragic, because I know what's coming.
I know, it's so heartbreaking. They work so well together.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember, because I liked Anya, but I distinctly remember the moment that I completely fell in love with her was in the body, when she just has that moment of not understanding.
Yes.
She just doesn't understand. And from that moment on, I was like, oh yeah, she's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I say this all the time, but it's wild. Most of these women didn't go on to have very successful TV careers.
Yes.
But especially her, because she is, like you said, Dominic, that scene is she should have earned an Emmy for that scene, but she's that scene doesn't even Anya's mostly funny, and that scene she was able to be completely serious while still being childlike in her naivety. And Emma Caulfield has the range. She just does.
She deserved to have some kind of happy endings, bitch in Apartment 23 kind of sitcom where she got to really show off just how great and charming and hilarious she is.
Oh, she would kill one of those type of shows.
I also did get a thrill when I saw her in WandaVision.
WandaVision?
I got so excited when I see her. Out of all of the, not of all of them, but out of most of the folks that have ever been on this show, seeing her again in anything is really thrilling, because I do think she's one of the most talented people that was ever on the show. And I was so sad they killed her. So
I
sad.
know.
Still sad.
So we get that scene. She slaps. Her slap is also really good, because it's very silly TV slap, but it's supposed to be, because she's doing her bad cop shtick. Then they leave the room. They reconvene with Buffy in the bathroom, and now we're gonna have a scene reading from Surrender Your Sons author and Slayerfest 98 co-host Adam Sass as Buffy, Pen 15 and Broad City writer Gabe Liedman as Xander, and Crystal from Drag Race UK as Anya.
Did you see that? I actually made him cry.
You were perfect. I was worried I overdid it with the whole easy way, hard way thing.
No, you were great, and I wasn't sure if I should slap him, but then he made me want to slap him, so I thought, okay, slap him.
He'll be singing in no time.
So what do we do now?
Now, we let him stew in his own juices for a bit, then we give him the hard brace.
Right. What's the status with your guy?
He's not talking yet. We'll get there. How's your guy?
The weasel wants to sing. He just needs a tune.
He's primed. I'll be pumping him in no time. He'll give us information soon.
I love the whole back and forth when he's she's oh, the canary's about to say he just needs a tune, and he's we'll be pumping him in no time.
Pumping him for information, so good.
Which is at least the third time the Buffy writers use the pumping joke, because Buffy says it when she goes to see Spike in the musical. Xander says it here, and Spike says it later about Principal Wood. Like he's like, "Oh, I'll be pumping him," or I think he says pounding him, and then he's like, "Wait, I should have said this." And it's like, well, no, that was a. We'll take the first interpretation.
It's season 7 of the show. The writers have been on the internet. They know what fanfic is out there. We're gonna give you just enough breadcrumbs to launch an magnum opus of smut.
So Buffy goes back to talk to Spike. Dominic, what do you think? I want everyone's opinion on the issue I have, which a lot of the listeners get mad at me for, is I do love Spike, but when they talk about their relationship, it'll be like, you did this thing wrong, you did this thing wrong, but we never address the sexual assault. And I don't like that we dance around, oh, well, you used me, and he can tell her, which I do think is a very good line when he says, I've come to redefine the words pain and suffering since I fell in love with you. But Buffy rightfully is like, how could you say that? And she's like, you're feeling sorry for yourself, Spike. And he's like, I'm feeling honest for myself. The scene works because they're both such good actors, but I get a little annoyed at we're talking about it, but we're not talking about the worst thing. Yeah, Dominic, how do you feel about?
I'm going to open this up to something that irks me in general as a storytelling technique. I get frustrated when writers make characters flip from good to bad to good to bad to good to bad to good to bad, or they tread in this gray area. So sometimes I get frustrated because, Spike's run the gambit of being awful, and then, he gets defanged, and then he's good, and he's he wants to be bad. And after he got his soul back, part of me was hoping okay, here comes the redemption. But then they sort of play around with is he good or is he bad again? And I remember feeling the same way when I would watch the X-Files, and they would do the same thing with Skinner. It's oh, he helped them this week, but then he's still being mysterious. And is he good or is he bad? And same thing on Lost. There's those characters that they mine so deeply in their ambiguity of if they're good or bad or where they're at right now. And so I feel like at this point in the show, I feel like I wanted the writers to make up their mind and be like, is he good or is he bad? Just tell me what he is. But yeah, I understand the sort of dancing around everything that happened the previous season. I don't know. They're both such good actors that no matter what material they get, they can deftly handle. But that's just a personal peeve of mine. When characters stay in that sort of limbo space for too long.
Eugene, how do you feel about it?
I mean, I think you're completely right about the way that they just she talked about him, assaulting her without doing it, right? How dare you say that? I think for almost everything else, this show really holds up in the year of our Lord Beyonce 2021, right? A lot of but that storyline in particular doesn't, right? Because she still falls in love with him, and it's really depressing to watch that happen, and went through obviously a lot of people before it got on television. And I think you're right. That scene really could have been a moment where she he's fucking tied up. Where's he gonna go? She light into him about that, and that I told you fucking no, and I had to kick you away from me. So all of those, I completely agree. I will say I do like that there is so much ambiguity with Spike and some of the other characters, because I feel like humans are like that too. I feel like there are some people who I'm just especially in DC, I'm not sure what they're up to. You know what I mean? You're just I think that you're good. Some, you have a source that 1 week they're super helpful, and the next week they're calling you at 7:30 in the morning, cussing you out. So it's there is that. It's not a healthy relationship, but it is kind of it is something that I find very interesting in this show. And I think with Angel, it was a little bit of the same, but he stayed on one track for a long time, and I think it got boring. like I kind of got bored with Angel. I know that's maybe it's not a popular opinion. I also have never watched the whole show of Angel because I was so upset that he left her. I know that's insane.
Eugene!
I swear to God, I know. It has been literally decades, and I probably should be able to watch it by now. And so I swear to God, one day I will. But I was like just so heartbroken that he left her that I couldn't watch the show. I also never watched Bones because of it. I was like, I'm still upset with David for allowing that to happen.
Eugene, did you though like go and watch the crossover episodes?
Oh my God!
Faith would
Yes,
go back?
absolutely. And that's the only. And then I was always very confused too, right? Because when they were on the WB together, it would go right into it. Which I really loved, but then I wouldn't understand the rest of it. I'm like, why is this guy green? What is this? Like, who the hell is this this person? Like, I was just so confused by it. Like, who's Doyle? Like, all of these things that I never understood. My mom has since watched Angel. She was also as upset with him, but now she's obsessed and trying to force me to do so. I think like one of the reasons I really like the scene is because despite what it was missing, when he says, I think he says the soul is about self-loathing or something like that, which, holy shit, what a good experience or explanation for like what life is about and how much time we spend hating ourselves when we shouldn't, right? When like being a vampire is all about, the thrill of doing whatever you want. And so I just thought like him becoming more human and them saying that was like, oh, maybe I don't know. I always took it as like, maybe we should be a little bit nicer to ourselves because if not, you'll end up tied up to a chair with the vampire slayer yelling. That's what I took out of that.
All right, so Eugene, the new thing will be your mother and I both will bully you into watching Angel.
Literally gonna happen. And I bought all the seasons on iTunes, so it's not like I don't have access to it.
Oh, so you like have it?
Yeah, it is an active choice. I've had to tiptoe my way into it. I swear to God, before I die, it will happen.
Great. So you will watch Angel so that way you can come back on for when we cover Angel.
Yes, exactly.
So we cut to Andrew and Xander again, and Xander pisses me off a little bit here. I do love Andrew kind of just casually drinking his water, and he's like, that sounds bad. Like, and he's like, she's killed more men than smallpox. And he's like, does smallpox still kill people?
How very like Xander, though, to make interrogating Andrew all about himself.
Yes.
Both him and Spike do that this whole episode, right? Like they talk like it's like, oh, how sad I am. The boys are really complaining with how tough the girls have been on them this episode. And they're both very like eye roll inducing, especially Spike's is a little bit more like aggressively bad, where Xander's is just like, God damn it, Xander, just like be a little bit better than this.
Oh no, but Andrew's like, oh yeah, I saw Spike having sex with Anya that one time.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
That would be the one gay guy in the house, like spilling everyone's like secrets and drama.
Exactly.
Oh my God, can you imagine like a reality show just set like in the house during season 7? I mean, I guess that's actually just storyteller, really.
Right.
Episode, but yeah, I love that. Just inconsequentials, like, so yeah, I saw them having sex one time. It was okay.
Yeah. Takes a sip of water. So Anya comes bursting into the room and is like, you liar! And just like shoves him on the ground. And I love Xander tries to pull her back and she just fucking slaps Xander, and the way she mouths like, ooh, sorry. Like,
it's so good.
Then where the hell are we, Phil?
So Buffy, I think Buffy like walks in. Right. And it's a bit like that meme from Community where Troy walks back into the apartment and everything's on fire.
Oh yeah.
She walks into the bedroom and Anya is like fist raised, about to strike Andrew, and Xander's just like sat there like looking on. She's like, everything okay? And they're like, yeah, it's fine. It's very like a post 9/11 like torture is okay vibes in like
oh my God, it is.
Don't do that to my girl Anya.
Yeah, don't bring Anya into that.
Sorry guys. So then Buffy's about to walk back into the other room, but she hears Spike talking to himself, and of course he's talking to the first. She hears a little bit of his trigger song. And then when she walks back in, Spike is acting very, very differently. He's a lot calmer. He's a lot more sort of like sinister with how calm he is and how like just unresponsive almost. and then basically he flips out and then jumps through the wall to get Andrew. And let's be honest, Spike biting Andrew, probably the hottest thing to ever happen in Andrew's life.
Oh, so good.
I mean,
I was like, what do I need to do for that to be me right now?
to have Spike bust through a wall to want your blood so bad, I'd sign me up.
I have been inside and alone for a year and a half.
And I can remember like that because I mean you mentioned earlier, Philip, the cut to commercials. I remember that cut to commercial and I was like, I like loved seeing Andrew in this episode, but I was like, oh, he's definitely gonna die here because the show loves killing people off. So I really was like, oh yeah, he's dead. Like there's no way he's gonna survive. But I was glad he did. Buffy knocked Spike off. So then I forget the way they like, is it just like, oh, it's a cut to Buffy telling everyone what happened. And I love the theme of Dawn saying, she's like asking how what's his name is doing about Andrew and how that's like, we're still continuing the like, no one knows who he is.
He's Tucker's brother.
Yeah. And Xander even says they had to tie him up, but mostly so he'd stop scratching his bandages. And the thing I like about Buffy here, which I do like, I feel like from seasons 5 and 7 are the times we get, and 3 too, the most confident version of Buffy Summers, which like I fucking love. Like I love that she's like, well, I heard him singing, I heard these things happening. She's like putting together the pieces without the Scoobies, which I guess is kind of a theme of the season as well. But like, she's not stupid. Like she's very, she noticed Spike was different the moment she walked in, even though he was trying to pretend to be like everything's fine. And I do like that Buffy is on it. And she said she heard him singing, and Anya has that line of, maybe it's another musical, much crappier musical.
Wait, I love the musical episode. Am I the only one? Because I know that.
Oh, I love it.
Love it.
It's so, I like literally still sing Walk Through the Fire to myself sometimes. Like I'm
me too.
Okay, good.
I love that one.
I would have to leave otherwise. Like
before the pandemic, I did a live show at Stonewall in New York, and I had 2 drag queens.
Oh my god!
They performed Under Your Spell, and the opening number was I'll Never Tell, and the drag queen had me be Xander, and she was Anya, and we like danced to it. And it was a lot of fun. But yeah, that was like, I love that episode so much.
So good.
I tend to and hands up, I'm not a musical person, but I love the Buffy. Like I always say, Buffy's my favorite musical. Because like my brain is broken, so anything Buffy, I'm gonna love.
Literally.
You're desperate for Twitter gays to just like come at you.
But it opened the floodgates. It really opened the floodgates for every other show to try. I mean, Grey's Anatomy tried it, Flash tried it. Like
also a good musical.
Yeah, just it was so formative to other shows.
The Magicians did it a couple of times.
Yeah,
and I the thing that Buffy did, because like I just liked the idea of it being a silly, fun way to get the characters involved in a musical. But yeah, Eugene, I don't know. I feel like the only friends I have that love Buffy but maybe don't love the musical are like my straight friends.
Yes, right. And we can't listen to them, you guys.
No, their opinions are there.
We're not listening to them.
Sorry to all the straight men that have been on this podcast.
They will be fine.
Yeah, they'll be fine. So Xander mentions it's a trigger. I do love that Willow asks if it's left over from his military days, and he's like, no, it's because I saw a lot of movies. Because I will tell a side story of, I recently was in New York. I was visiting New York for a week, and I went out to brunch with a friend who did unlimited mimosas, but I just got one because I had to like do a recording. I was like, oh, that's weird. There's crushed glass in this. And then I spit a piece of the crushed ice out, and it was glass. And I had swallowed some, and my friend who was drunk was like, do I have to bring you to the hospital? And I was like, I've seen enough prison shows to know it takes a lot of glass to kill you. This is fine.
What? Oh my god.
Ian, that is so dark.
Dude, that is not where I thought that when you like side story and you were like, I almost died by taking glass.
I mean, I didn't almost die. I'm fine.
What prison shows have you watched where people eat enough glass to die, but not enough glass to be okay?
It was a plot in Orange is the New Black. They're like feeding someone glass slowly.
Oh.
and the person doesn't die for like a few weeks of like eating glass every day.
Well, hopefully this was more than a few weeks ago for you.
Yes, it was.
Okay,
it was
good.
actually it was a week ago right now, as of today.
We're still, I don't know, it feels like we're still in the danger zone.
But so then we cut to Robin Wood. He's burying Jonathan's body, which again, like Eugene and I were talking about, like they really like were playing on the mysterious role of like, who is Robin Wood? What is he doing?
And DB Woodside does like an extra creepy, dead-eyed stare in these scenes. Like they're really leaning into that red herring of he could be a villain. But I also just realized, like, so he stumbles across Jonathan's body in the cellar. Does that mean that the last 3 episodes have all taken place in like the space of a day or 2?
Yeah.
Because that body is fresh.
Right.
Ew. Yeah. Freshly killed.
Because they're still. In the beginning, they were fixing up the basement or the living room, and they were wearing the same clothes they wore in the end of the previous episode. And Conversations with Dead People, when it ends, the next episode picks up like with Willow finding Dawn in the living room. That's still
so it's like 24 hours then.
Yeah.
Like, oh god, they can't get a break. This is what happens. Like when I watch like very heavily serialized stuff, I'm just like, oh, like you haven't slept in weeks.
Right. I'm like, give them a scene where they sit down and have dinner, like.
Right.
So we find Spike chained up in the basement. We get more of their conversation, but the bit that I do love is Spike asks if he hurt anyone, and she's like, "You took a big bite out of Andrew, but he'll be fine." And he says, "Who?" Which is very good. So I love the idea. He says, "Who?" about a man he almost murdered.
Literally.
I mean, that's me waking up next to some people. I do enjoy the ongoing joke that Andrew is just Tucker's brother, but then I'm going to be a huge nerd on you. I never met Tucker, but we did meet Andrew in season 6 because he threatened his Boba Fett doll.
Mm-hmm. His action figure, Philip.
Oh, boys for children.
But so again, they're seeing where they're talking about stuff here. That the two of them, I can understand why people like love the Buffy ship so much, because they really, for how much Sarah Michelle Gellar doesn't like Buffy with Spike, the two of them have very good chemistry, I think. Yeah. Which is a credit to both their acting, because, you know, she didn't even like Buffy with Spike, but she like commits to the acting and sells it of, oh, these two people, whether at this point, whether you think Buffy's in love with him or not, you can tell she has love for him, right? Like, she tells him she believes in him. She tells him she saw him changed. She tells him she saw that he changed, even when he's like, I know how much blood you can drain from a girl just so they cry but don't die. And he's like, all the stuff I did to like girls Dawn's age. I don't know. I'm like, in my brain, I'm like, oh, I do want you two to kiss. Like I do.
When I was watching this, I had completely forgotten that this scene existed until I rewatched this episode earlier today. And part of me is just like, logically, why doesn't Buffy just kill him? She knows he's being used to like kill innocent people. When Angel posed a threat, she made the choice to kill him, and she loved him so much. And this is like, I was like, from a place of, detachment. I was like, and also like in the, looking at everything he did to her over like the previous season, it's just like, I don't know. There's a lot of episodes this season where it's like Buffy and Spike just talking and talking. It's very much like that, those straight people who think their relationship is fucking fascinating. And
I do agree. Like, because she says at a later time, like she's talking to Giles, I think, and when she couldn't kill Dawn to save the world, and like now she would make a different decision, right? And like, so Spike's the same way. Like it should make more sense to just stab his little ass and move on, right? Like if you don't love him. But the thing that I've always loved about and sometimes hated about the character Buffy was that she was always so human. Like when it came down to it, I don't think she would have killed Dawn, even in season 7. Like she was the superhuman, but at the same time, she was always so tender with her friend, quote unquote friends and members of her family. Like no matter how bad people were, she like forgave them really quickly. And And especially when it was when she was like in service of the mission, right? Like if she knew this person could help her save the world, it's like really selfless not to kill them because he's like really annoying her and like, you know, trying to kill her friends. And Spike, I think for the shippers, I always wanted Buffy to be by herself. Just like have a normal, like Riley, I really loved that relationship because it was just like, oh, he's much weaker than her and she's in charge and he is kind of there. Like I like that. And Spike was always the fuckboy that she couldn't let go, right? Like, he says to her, I think in this scene, like, you like men that hurt you, you need that. Like, it's a fuckboy telling you that he's a fuckboy. Let him go, right? Like, he's telling you, I'm bad for you, and you still won't do it. Also, he could kill himself, just to be clear. So why he's, like, we're like, I just realized I'm putting a lot of pressure on Buffy to do it when he could just walk outside and, you know, at 6 a.m. and everyone's fine.
You're not wrong.
Now that I think about it, he could do this himself. As much as he told her to kill him, he could do it himself.
Yeah, I have this theory that, like, so he was saying, you know, the conversation they have earlier in the episode, but he basically says, like, our relationship was just a symptom of her self-loathing. I think that even at this point in the show, even though she says that she doesn't hate herself that way, I think she does. And she keeps Spike around because then there will always be somebody who is more disgusting and awful and lower than her. And she likes sort of, you know, she it's like in Conversations with Dead People where she has that superiority and inferiority complex. It's like she kind of can't let go of Spike because at least she'll never be as bad as him.
I don't know. I think it's because she does have love for him, and it's the tenderness that Eugene brought up that, like, I don't know, but then you guys mentioned that she did kill Angel and she loved him. So she openly loved him so much and she still killed him. I don't know. But then we get this end, which I fucking love.
So good.
Oh, yes.
Like the way she says, I believe in you, Spike, the look on both of their faces, and then the cut of the power goes out and immediately the bringers are bursting into the Summers home is so good. I think this was like at the time in the season, this was like my favorite fight scene that we had seen because it was like Buffy was surprise attacked. We get to see all of the Scoobies. I mean, Anya and Willow get like knocked out pretty quickly, but I think it's really cool and really like fun. It's like
it's in close quarters too, which is not where a lot of the fights happen on Buffy. Like they're usually outside or like in some big fucking warehouse or something, like, but they're like very in close quarters. And then it was a reminder that they're not safe. Like, as much as the house has gotten attacked, it wasn't like this many people usually over the years. And it usually ended pretty quickly. But this was like, there's nowhere safe for Buffy or anybody in this anymore. And because these people can get in, like there's nothing you can do. You always have to be on your guard.
Yeah.
I did love seeing Dawn actually being able to really hold her own and defend herself. Like that was very rewarding.
I will say I wish we had gotten to see Willow do a little, like, it makes sense that Anya wouldn't be as much of a like big fighter unless she has her demon powers, but I would have preferred seeing Willow get a little bit like to do more, but because I
knock her out because then otherwise she would just magic them all away. Right. Like she creates a plot problem because Willow is all powerful, so like you have to kind of like get her off the board.
much in the way of like, I feel like a lot of the Marvel folks have said they had that problem with Scarlet Witch in like the previous films, like they kind of just had to knock her out because otherwise she would be able to destroy everyone. And I think that happens with like the super powerful characters. It's like you got to knock them out first, otherwise what the fuck, this will be over. But I love Buffy bursting through that basement door and getting right back up to fight. Like that's like, I love that kind of Buffy fight where it's like we're smashing shit but we're still in it.
Again, from a budgetary point of view, it's very budgetarily friendly. So they can use all the CGI on blowing up the Watchers Council and opening up the Hellmouth.
I hadn't thought about that, but you are definitely right. I love that. So then she runs upstairs because she thinks they're there for Andrew. And I love that she uses Andrew's body to like fight the bringers. It's just him gay screaming the whole time, which would be me.
Same. Well, the thing is, like I think of the reason why gay people are obsessed with Andrew is because we're like, that'd probably be me. Like that would be like, as much as I would love to be like, I'm Buffy or I'm Faith, like I would be Andrew, like tied to the chair, screaming, like telling people's business, being like, Spike had sex with Anya, like just not helpful at all. Like literally exactly right. And I mean, Dawn whooping ass and using his body, which she does it a couple times throughout the seasons, and after she learns how to fight from Buffy, and they talk about it. She's like, I learned that from watching you, like using people's body to flip them over, which I always thought was one. I always thought I could do it if someone came to attack me. It hasn't happened yet, but in my head, that'd be my go-to move. And so, like seeing all of that was really exciting. I mean, we all thought Andrew was the one they wanted, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so you're like, oh, she's getting the right one, and lo and behold, not so much.
So then she's like, wait, Spike, and they have taken Spike. So they she kills the ones she kills, the other ones escape with Spike. And again, we get Buffy. She immediately looks at that bringer, the one that's like dead or unconscious in the living room, and she's like, I know who these people are. Like right now, she put all the pieces together. She knows what the season's gonna be. She's like, she says like, oh, the demon's haunting us, the people speaking to us, it's all the same. We're up against the first evil. Like she knows, and I love that Buffy. I love the Buffy that like, while the Scoobies are helpful, it's like she can put the pieces together herself. It's like what Giles said, how she doesn't really need a watcher anymore. She needs support, but she doesn't, like, she can figure out the evil or the big bad that she has to fight. She can figure it out, right? Like at this point, we've earned that for this character, like 7 seasons of watching her fight demons, that she would, remember that, oh, I know what this is, Well,
especially
which is a good memory, because I feel like I wouldn't remember that.
But this was
like, I've never seen this person before.
Right. Who is this guy with these weird eyes?
But I mean, I suppose it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, because the first was the one that tried to get Angel to kill himself. So it's like, maybe I'm just projecting this, but like it would have been fresh in her mind that, she's kind of been in a situation before, and what was the common factor? It was the first evil.
Yeah. So then we cut to the Watchers Council, and like I said before, it's wild that we get all of these like actors doing these like literally Dominic, how long do you think they had to have them on set?
Oh gosh, I mean, there was a scene a little bit earlier in the episode with Quentin too.
Yeah.
And then he's there at the head of the table, and then he gets up and oh no, maybe that was earlier on.
This is where he's at the table. Yeah.
A day,
right? Like
a day, like maybe even 3/4 of a day. They might have been able to do this and then go and do like Willow and Andrew at the butcher's.
Yeah.
In one day. I don't know. I'm not a line producer, but yeah, not more than a day.
Because it's like altogether, I think maybe 10 minutes of the Watchers.
If that, yeah.
Yeah. But I remember when I watched this thinking, oh, cool. The Watchers are going to finally fucking help Buffy. They're going to go to Sunnydale. They're going to help. And then, nope, they blow up.
and there's I must say, like, it's kind of satisfying to see Quentin blow up, or like, the build.
All these years.
Like, after everything.
Yeah.
And he dies at his most pompous because he has just quoted the Bible and Winston Churchill.
I think like this was when this episode, I think I may have said it already, but this episode in season 7 overall felt like this isn't kids games anymore. Like it's the ultimate growing up. Buffy at some point starts to lose some of her friends, and the relationships from her childhood start to change. There are no more adults in the room. They literally just blew them up, right? Like it's like when you grow up and you look around and you're the adult in the room, which is like one of the most terrifying things about growing up. Like, where's the adult to help me? And it's like, oh shit, that's me, I guess. And I think that is what they're kind of like signifying here, is that like, oh no, we're not playing anymore. They're throwing all the spaghetti at the wall now.
Yeah. And so literally that's like a 5-minute scene. And then we cut to Spike getting cut. The first evil's talking shirtless. Yes.
Important.
Which I do love that even the first evil is thirsty and is like, you look good with your shirt off. So I'm glad we're doing it this way. That's us as villains. And also the first evil also refers to Andrew as what's his name. Get
Even
a
though he's been
break.
talking to him for days.
Right.
Yeah.
But so then we meet our like when she's like, now Spike, you want to see what a real vampire looks like? And like the final beat is the Turakan like coming up through the seal. And I can remember being so mad because they told you when the next new episode would be, and it was like I even looked it up because I was like, I think you had to wait a month, and it was like this aired November 26th.
Yes.
The next one didn't air till December 17th, so it was
Yes.
almost a full month. And I can remember like hating having to wait for that next new episode.
Oh, that's so interesting because I don't know, Philip, if you remember. I feel like we were maybe a month, 6 weeks, maybe 2 months behind a lot of shows at that point in time. I know now with streaming, everything sort of goes global at the same time. But I know
there was always anything that aired in the States, there'd be like a couple of weeks delay, and then it would either come out on like Sky One or the BBC. I think.
Oh my God, how sad!
Season 7 was on Sky.
I don't ever remember having to wait more than a week for.
Oh, really?
For a resolution to anything like this. And same thing with Lost. I think we were sort of a full year behind what was going on Lost when you first started, and 24 all those things. They would air week by week, and we would never have the odd breaks that you have, except for the like hiatus between seasons. I never remember having to wait sort of mid-season for anything to be resolved.
Yeah,
it happened. I remember this too because, and it happened a lot. I feel like with Buffy, maybe other shows too, but because Buffy was the show that I was so obsessed with growing up. Like I remember being like, God damn it, again! Like we'll see you in 2 weeks or whatever the hell they would go after. And this one hurting, especially because one, we didn't know what this thing was, right? Like, and no name, no nothing. Did Spike have to bleed out for this to end? Like, no information at all.
And you still had the Giles cliffhanger too,
right? Oh my God, that's right.
Yes. Because they had that on the previously on for this episode,
right?
Never addressed it. So, like, you are led to assume that one of the Watchers who has already been assassinated, as Quentin refers to, is Giles.
Right.
This season I feel like it was especially rough, the like cliffhangers, because all the episodes do kind of like bleed into each other because it's one after the other.
And they also said that like Faith was coming back months later or something.
Eugene, I feel like we're becoming best friends because I was literally just fucking about to say the worst part was when they were like, Faith is coming back, but you had to wait like 2 months to see Faith.
It was so, and then there was the crossover into Angel. So if you didn't watch Angel, you were like 2 weeks, you still didn't know. It was a nightmare.
Yes.
A nightmare. Nothing worse has happened to a human being longer than waiting to find out when Faith was actually coming on the show.
That's where all our issues.
Exactly. That's where my trauma comes from.
And now for a quick break. Folks, do you love movies? The good ones? Even the bad ones everyone told you not to like? It sounds like Super Yaki is the place for you. The team at Super Yaki loves movies. So much so they've dedicated every waking moment of their life to bringing you top quality merchandise to showcase your love for them. From super soft t-shirts celebrating the 20th anniversary of the cinematic masterpiece Josie and the Pussycats, to comfy sweatshirts made for the brave members of the Movies by Yourself Club. They even have pins of some of your favorite directors, like Sofia Coppola and Jordan Peele. Super Yaki joyously brings you tangible love letters to movies and filmmakers that you can wear with pride. Plus, the team at Super Yaki screen prints all their apparel using eco-friendly, 100% water-based inks, and ships with compostable poly mailers for an environmentally friendly alternative to online shopping. And as a special gift to you, listeners can save 10% on their order with the code SUPERSlayerFest, all caps, no spaces, at checkout. If the spirit moves you, find them at superyaki.com. Let's watch more movies, y'all. And now for a fashion roundup of this episode of Buffy, we have season 7 costume designer Matt van Dyne. Hello, Matt.
Well, hello. Here we go again.
We're back.
We're back. We're back.
So what do you have for us for Never Leave Me?
Oh, Never Leave Me. Well, as I'm watching the shows, I'm like, some shows I have, specific memories. Some shows, not so much. This would be like one or two memories, of this show. And what I'm thinking is, I was just trying to think in my mind what was going on at the time. Is I think this is about the time Terry, the initial costume designer, was transitioning and leaving. So I was probably, busy
running around a lot.
Yeah, running around a lot. Exactly. But what I do have some notes, as I was watching. Definitely the memory at the end of this episode. We'll go from the end to the beginning, I guess.
Okay.
So at the very end of the episode, the Uber vamp who rises up out of the seal. I went, oh yeah, I remember this, and I remember. I remember that was a big deal because, and I was looking it up where we shopped to create this Uber vamp. And it was like a fabric store in downtown Los Angeles called Michael Levin. And I looked up, what we spent. It wasn't a lot of money at the time, as I recall. I'm thinking, but I think we just augmented something maybe we already had. I'm not sure.
Okay.
And I was also looking for he wears a unitard under the outfit,
Okay.
So, and that just made me laugh because it came from a dance studio, Carabelle, and I'm like, oh, the dancing Uber vamp. But
Do some ballet.
Yes, and then in reviewing, I recognize I think I caught a glimpse of Spike wearing the black leather pants, and I do have some notes about black leather DKNY, Donna Karen, New York, leather pant, and they were from I'm not sure what store we bought those, but they were around like $550, $600, something like that. And I think in the rest of the episode we went with some Levi's because that's a little cheaper. So, and I had a note on that as well, saying, that we had Levi's for him. Later somewhere in that episode, there were Levi's, black Levi's he's wearing. And I do remember, okay, so as I'm watching the show, I remember Anya's, Emma Caulfield, little blue with the red poppy floral top. I remember it, but I couldn't find any notes on it anywhere. So we probably bought it previously, at another time, and then inserted it into this
She looks great in that top.
Isn't that great? It's a memorable top. I do remember it. When I looked at it, I went, oh yeah, I remember that. and then I had a note on, which always makes me laugh, Michelle Trachtenberg played Dawn, her purple sweater that she wears. And that was, of course, Michelle's favorite designer, Marc Jacobs. And it was from Bloomingdale's.
She looks great in that color, I think.
Yes, she does. And she's just a doll. She was just so cute. But it was like $128 top or something like that,
Okay.
But I don't think we had to do any multiples on that because I don't think she got beat around in that. So and then Andrew just has on it's an in-house black little shirt from Bloomingdale's. It was their in-house brand. I think they call it Metropolitan something. I forget what the line is called. And I do recall Sarah's little gray top when she morphs into the first, I guess.
Okay.
But I don't have any notes on that. Now, I think, hadn't she worn that previously?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
I thought so. That just came back to me just now. I thought, oh, that was something we repeated. And I was trying to remember.
Yeah, she wears it a couple times when it's like the first as her.
I thought so.
It's almost, I think it's almost like to signify, that's the first because it wears that when it's her.
I think that was it. I think that was the thinking that we had with it. And then the other little note I had was on Emma's little top with the deer on the front of it.
Okay.
That little
brown one.
green and brown top. and that came from Bloomingdale's, and that was a Donna Karan top as well. And it wasn't super expensive or anything, but I thought it was kind of interesting, the juxtaposition with her like beating up someone and then wearing that top. I thought that's pretty cute. I like that.
I do have one shirt I need to ask you about.
Okay, yeah, let's see if I have any memory.
So, and you've pointed this out, that how sometimes like you do think the women like those, and I agree with you, the fashion they wear could be in style now.
Yes,
but some of like the Xander outfits are a little baggy.
We're going to Xander. I just knew we were going to Xander. The rust shirt probably.
But yes, you put him in a very nice fitting t-shirt at one point. And it looks great on him.
In that episode? Is he in a...
Yeah.
Is it a dark shirt? Is dark?
Yes,
charcoal?
It's just a t-shirt, and it looks great on him.
Thank you. Thank you, yes.
I'm wondering if you had any notes on that, because
I'd have to go back. It's probably just something from probably Banana Republic, I'm guessing.
All right.
Just, which their t-shirts actually still to this day, I think fit pretty well. They're very, they're fitted, and the sleeve is caps in the right place, and the neckline is, just the right scoop. I just always think that's a good look on a guy. So
it's funny, right? Because sometimes you'll get a t-shirt and it's like the same thing, just a basic t-shirt, and it'll look terrible. But sometimes it'll be the same color from somewhere else, and it'll look great.
Yes, it's very interesting. Yeah, because if it's cut, if it's cut more traditional, they don't look so great. They don't look so great.
Well, I do remember you telling me about the cuts for James Marsters, and that was very appreciative.
Yes.
You did a lot for all of us younger gays watching the show.
Well, he didn't wear much of a shirt in this episode.
True, yeah.
I think he had on that black shirt at some point, but then after that, the blood kind of got to me in that episode. It's like, I'm not into that. But
and it's funny because I had been wondering if you had to style the Turok, the like Uber Vamp. Like I was wondering if that was just like, oh, that's a costume we bought, or if it was.
No, it was actually made. So
that's funny. Yeah. Was that like a pain? Is it a pain to make something like that? That's not like traditional clothing.
Well, it's not a pain. It's just a process. It's a process of making something look older than it is, or like just doing the work that you need to do on it to make it look beaten up, or of a certain vintage or whatever. But. Yeah. Because a lot of the times, you start with a piece of leather and it just doesn't look, it looks too clean, too sleek, too chic, you know. So, but yeah, it's just about, doing things like that. And then the fun part is, just applying all the different crap to it to make it look really worn and, recycled. That's what's kind of the fun part. But in the unitard that I mentioned, of course, that would have to be dyed and then probably painted as well, as I recall. I'm sure we did do that, to make it age, to age it, And sometimes, like for a lot of clothing, we would send, but not this. But there was a place, I'm trying to remember the name of it, downtown LA. But you would actually send the clothes there, and they would, put gravel and rocks and things in a turbo thing, and just beat the hell out of that stuff. So it just depended on how much you wanted to be worn looking. But if manually, you can only do so much. But if you take it to a real professional, they can really make it look like somebody ran over it with a car. And sometimes that is the preferred look. But yeah, that's how we put an Uber Vamp together. We just build one.
What a sentence. That's how we put an Uber Vamp together.
Uber Vamp together, yeah. Which I thought, as I was watching that, I thought, well, this is a precursor for that. I think this is about the time we got the heads up on the Uber Vamp army for the last episode.
Okay.
So we had to start preparing for that in a budget and actually start making them. And we're about halfway through the season.
Yeah.
And because it's going to
so many too.
Yes, and it's going to take some time. So, so we started working on that pretty early on. And I think this was the model for it. So, and then we just took it from there. But as I recall, that was about the time. Yeah. It's probably in the budget if I looked up the budgets. all that for the show.
I've learned some of your lingo. I was going to say, would that be moved to episode 99? Is that what that?
Yeah, do you remember that? That's funny. Yeah, episode 99. How funny. Yes, gosh, you're good. You're a quick study. Yes, episode 99. That's in my notes. I go back and look and I go, oh, we put that over there because we can pull from there. That was, that stock money that you're giving up front, But probably for the Ubervamp Army, we applied for more money because that was not, thought of early on in the season. So,
Right.
So as things evolved, we went, well, we're not going to have money for that. So you guys got to come up with some dough for that, Which, when we get there, I'll tell you a story toward the end about that.
Okay.
So,
okay.
There will be a good story. You remind me of it.
I will.
about building an Ubervamp army. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll say that one.
All right, Matt. Well, thank you for joining us, and it was a pleasure as always.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
I'll talk to you later. Okay.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. So now that we're at the end, favorite outfit of the episode, Dominic?
I've got to go with Andrew and his leather coat and that introduction because it was so well done and written into the script. But me as a human being, always loved Willow's style just throughout the show.
Okay.
Just as an aside, but I could never pull that off. But yeah.
Philip?
So Willow's hair looked great this episode.
Yeah.
I think my favorite outfit has to go to the one scene where Xander shows his arms in that form-fitting t-shirt.
Oh my God, yes, God.
Eugene?
Other than that, it would also, I think Anya, for some reason, I love that see-through arm shirt she had on. That
Yes.
it was hot and also very 2000s hot, where those shirts don't happen a lot. Where there's all these weird designs on the front, and I also loved her hair straight and short. I'm a white woman with a bob is my kryptonite, and so that was her whole look. This whole episode was really my favorite.
So Xander in the tight shirt I did put as a close second, but I actually think Dawn looks really cute in that purple turtleneck. I think that color looks very nice on her, mixed with her hair color and her makeup. I think she looks cute. And I don't often list Dawn as having my favorite outfit, so I support you, Dawn. Favorite scene, Philip?
I think it's going to have to be Xander and Anya going all Guantanamo Bay on Andrew and just slapping the
Stop doing that to my Anya! Dominic, what was your favorite scene?
Oh gosh, I think Willow and Andrew seeing each other for the first time again, and then their scene in the alleyway.
That is really good.
Yeah, that's it for me.
Eugene?
All of those I love so much. I think my favorite one is the last one because it sets everything up. So it's it wasn't that enjoyable and it wasn't that interesting, but I just think because it is it sets up the entire rest of the show. I think it was one of my favorites. And again, I remember it more than any of the others because I was so pissed off that I wasn't going to find out about it for what actually was going on for weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you all said really good scenes. This episode really is even better than I don't know. You're listing all good scenes. I'm that should have been my favorite scene. But I think it's once the power goes out in that fight scene, I just love it so much. And Eugene, I think you really pinpointed why I love it because we didn't often get we got the zombies invading the house, but zombies aren't villains with agency. They're kind of just I'm gonna eat your brains, right? There's no they're not there to kidnap someone or kill whatever. They don't give a shit. They're just zombies. So it's one of the first times we see the Summers house isn't going to protect them. These monsters can get in and clearly put up a good fight trying to take out the Scoobies. Right. So I love that scene. What grade do you give the episode, Eugene?
I would say a B+. A B+. Okay. I think it's a really good episode. I think it has some of my favorite characters doing some of the best things they do the whole series, like Anya. So B+, A- B+, an 89.
Okay. Dominic?
I'm going to give it a solid B.
Okay.
Solid B. I think it works better as a whole when you watch sort of a run of these episodes together. Yeah. If you'd watch the previous two and then the next two along with it, in a 5-episode run, then I think it makes it stronger. But on its own, a solid B.
Cool. Okay. Philip?
I kind of have to grade it within the context of the whole season. And it's important connective tissue, but as an episode itself, there's some great stuff in there, but a lot of it felt when I was rewatching it was like very, very low energy. Basically, like apart from the slaps and the sort of the fight at the end, which kind of injects the whole episode with a sense of urgency, it's kind of been lacking. The rest of it is like it's a lot of like heterosexual moping and nonsense. So I think I'm going to give it a C+.
Okay. I again agree with Eugene. I give it a B+/A-. It's like very on the cusp, because while it is a part of the whole, I think this has very good scenes. Where the characters are like all giving it, they're all committing. I mean, this cast always did, but like they're all committing to their individual like side stories and stuff. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for listening. If you liked Slayerfest 98, you can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else you find your podcasts. Feel free to subscribe to us and give us a good rating if you like us. It'd be much appreciated. You can subscribe to our Patreon, which right now we're going through the show Harley Quinn over there, where you get access to that and our sex talk video series, My Nudie Judy, and a bunch of other content. And if you want to follow us on social, we are at SlayerFestX98. I am at IanXCarlos on all social media platforms. Philip, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Twitter, which is where I am a lot of the time when I'm avoiding writing. That's at Philip_Ellis, Philip with 1 L and Ellis with 2.
And Dominic, where can everyone find you?
I am on Instagram at Dominic Burgess 1 because someone else got there first. And on Twitter, I'm at just Dominic Burgess because I did get there first.
Nice. That's the reason Slayerfest 98 is Slayerfest X98, because there's someone who has Slayerfest 98 as their handle. Eugene, where can everyone find you?
I'm at Eugene Daniels, the number 2, because I also came there after someone did both on Instagram and Twitter. But I'm the second. And my dad has the same name, so it kind of works. So
all right, guys. Well, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.